Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guys Mo Nawara in the Midwest, and we've got Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are back after skipping a few of those last season games where teams are really tanking. We already kind of know who's in the playoffs, especially today. We are well aware of what those seedings are and what our matchups are in the MLB playoffs. So we're going to be running through some World Series futures, going to look at a few teams in each of these leagues and which of the leagues we might actually like the World Series champ to come out of as well. So we're going to be talking all things futures here for you. We will also have a show up for you about some of these individual matchups throughout the MLB playoffs, but do want to make sure you're liked and subscribed so you can continue to follow along with us as we are bringing you these picks during these MLB playoffs. We also want you to head to thelines.com, have great content up there all playoff long for you guys in this MLB postseason. Also have our great odds checker tool up there. You can go ahead and check and sort of swap and find all the best bets and juice available for you on those U.S. sports betting books. So let's jump into this stuff now, Nate, and get right into some of these World Series futures. I know you had a few things that you liked about the NL, so I kind of want to start there with you in the National League and talk to me a little bit about any of these best bets that you're feeling for some futures in this MLB postseason.
I just think there's more contenders in the National League, and I think if you're looking at kind of a wide approach in terms of betting, there are some markets at DraftKings to just take the NL East about plus 240. And then you get three teams in there, obviously in the Braves, Mets, and Phillies. You can also just bet the NL to win the World Series straight up at minus 125. So they are handicapping the National League as stronger. And just, again, a general bet is you can get the Yankees or Mets at plus 275. I probably prefer the NL East, though, because I think the Braves are looking like the most complete team once again as they try to repeat here. Just the way they finished the season. I mean, since June, they have the best record, 78-33. And the way they finished, when taking 6 of 7 from the Mets, 5 of 7 from the Phillies, it's kind of an iron sharpens iron thing here where the team that emerges from the NL East is most ready for postseason baseball. I mean, the Dodgers, obviously the favorite. I'm kind of out on them, despite the amazing run differential or amazing performance all regular season. That's not really how this goes here in the postseason. The rotation would not scare me if I'm going up against Urias, Clayton Kershaw, who's now very old and has very much struggled in the postseason, as we know. Tony Gonsolin, who had an incredible regular season, probably due for some regression in a postseason format. And then Tyler Anderson is their projected rotation here. And you look at the Phillies, Cardinals, and Braves in their league are the three best teams in the National League against lefties. Mets and Padres have also been much better against lefties down the stretch. So they're really going to have to lean on that bullpen, which, still does have a couple injuries in Blake Trinan and Dustin May. So I would not take the Dodgers at the shortest odds there. Braves are plus 500 or 600, depending where you can get them. Mets kind of intriguing all the way up at plus 950 at FanDuel. They obviously have the tougher road now going through the wild card, but with that 1-2 punch, their offense has been much more consistent. Best average in the majors, actually. It's in the second half, second best WOBA. Bullpen a little shaky, but I think if you just want to bet on starting pitching and the potential there, the Mets and then the Phillies, again, now sticking with the NL East as my preferred long shot look. You can get, if you can get a plus 3,500, is a streaky team that's also been pretty hot offensively over the course of the entire second half. The bullpen has been the biggest issue. But when you look at their rotation, I don't know who they want to throw in. Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Thor, if he gets that spot. But then you got Eflin, you got Kyle Gibson, you got guys you can turn into short relievers in the postseason and kind of go with that 2-2-2 approach or use them as openers and keep teams off balance. It does profile well to make a kind of Rays-esque run here out of the NL if the Phillies are able to manage that properly. And they get the Cardinals first. If they get past them, then it's with the Braves, and then you're playing. If you bet on the NL East, then you got the three of those four teams in the Final Four in the NL. I think you feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with most of what you said there. I mean, NL East, those three teams, I think there's plenty of reason to at least feel like you're obviously getting a little bit better shot if you do take that NL East winner at plus 240, I believe you said there on FanDuel, which is really nice. But I do want to take us back to the favorites right now and the Dodgers, at least from the NL there, Mo. I'm a little bit, I mean, if I was a fan of them, which I'm not, but I would be concerned about that bullpen. I would be a bit concerned just to know how is Tony Gonsolin going to step up in the playoffs. There's no more Kenley Jansen. How are we closing things out? At least somewhat shaky this year at times for them. So obviously it comes down to one of the best offenses in the history of the game with 0 holes in it. So where do you stand on this team? Do they have enough firepower and starting pitching to really, carry them through the playoffs and get back to the World Series?
I think I'm with Nate. Obviously the Dodgers are great. Like you said, I think you guys are really, really on what you're saying. The lineup is tremendous, obviously, basically 0 weak points. But, and honestly, I'm more impressed by the rotation than I guess you guys are. I don't really have too many concerns there. I think it's quite strong. I do think the bullpen looks a little weak, though. I know Evan Phillips has been awesome. I have to say that when I watched Evan Phillips in like the first month of the season, I thought his slider must be the most unhittable pitch I've ever seen. But he's just one guy. The depth is not there unless Trinan comes back. That would be obviously huge for them because he's been quite good when he's upright. Hasn't really been the case this year. Kimbrel, he's gone on streaks even recently where he's been very, very good, but you just can't trust it. So I do think their bullpen is a little bit of a weak point. And then the biggest thing that's standing out to me when I look at the NL bracket is honestly just how much better of a draw the Braves got than the Dodgers. I do think Braves plus 600 is actually okay. It's really hard to find value on these postseason futures that are when you're heading into the postseason in basically any sport. I'm usually not ever betting them. When I plugged some series prices into a parlay calculator, I mean, obviously I'm just kind of throwing darts, estimating where I think the price is going to be. But the Braves one came out to like plus 570, so there could be a little bit of value on the Braves. If you just want to gamble, I think betting plus 600 on the Braves is fine. I think the Padres and the Mets are both stronger than the Cardinals and the Phillies. I do think the two best wildcard teams are both on the Dodgers side of the bracket, so they have a much more difficult path, I think, than the Braves. So reasonable chance the Dodgers don't even make it. And then if the Braves play the Dodgers, the line is going to be fairly close. I mean, the Braves are really, really good. They've been the best team for the past few months. I mean, they gained 11 games on a 100-win team. I mean, that's pretty much all you have to say about how good the Braves have been. So a big thing there is just going to be Spencer Strider, though. If the Braves don't have Strider, they're going to be quite a bit weaker. He's been arguably the best pitcher in baseball. He's right there with DeGrom. So, yeah, I think it's huge, but last I saw is a good report. He felt good throwing off flat ground, so just keep an eye on that situation. If he's going to be good to go, then I really like where the Braves are sitting.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Often we see it comes down to who's hot at the end of the season. The New York Mets are going in the wrong direction. The Braves definitely continue going in the right direction, which is how they caught up to a team that won 100 games this year for only the 4th time in its franchise's history. And I will say for the Mets, I mean, one thing that could be going for them is the fact that their two dominant pitchers did get a little bit dinged up. DeGrom had that big blister on his hand, starting with the game against the A's that he gave up a 3-run first inning lead to the Athletics a few weeks ago, and that was really the start of the downfall for them. The only thing that you're looking for here as a Mets fan is the possibility that it was a hand blister. Same for Scherzer. It was just a bit of soreness, and really what's going to happen is they're going to see a big uptick in their production now that they're getting a little bit healthier. But I do agree, honestly, my favorite bet for World Series out of the NL is the Braves right now. If you're going to get it at plus 600, I see too many holes in other teams, especially just from the sort of play place the way that the play style changes in the postseason. And otherwise, I would feel a little bit better about the Dodgers, but I just think that from top to bottom, including that bullpen and pitching, the Braves are a deeper team and more complete. So let's move on a little bit to the AL here, gentlemen, and talk about a few of these teams as well. In terms of the leaders here, we got the Stros are at plus 380, a favorite out of the AL. The Yanks plus 550. The Guardians, we've got about plus 3,500 as well. Some pretty decent odds for some of these teams. I guess kick us off here, Nate, in the AL. What's one of your favorite bets out here? I did want to mention too the pesky Mariners. I at least have to give them the shout out for ending the longest postseason drought in MLB history. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what you're thinking in here and who you're looking at off the top.
Much harder to predict. I mean, right off the bat, because you have the Mariners and the Blue Jays, teams with zero postseason experience collectively. You have the Astros, who've been a really solid regular season team. Of course, the offense is not where it's been in years past. So I don't know if they're going to be able to continue their incredible pitching performance and be able to continue to silence bats and win low-scoring games throughout the postseason. With those short odds, I'm not super high on them. The Yankees, who have been incredibly wonky. So I think my best bet is the Guardians, just with the longest odds, because I think really anything can happen in this American League bracket. And they've been really good. I mean, 40-20 basically since the start of August. Lowest K rate in the majors in the second half. With Jose Ramirez setting the tone there, you're going to need situational hitting in the postseason. You're also going to need great bullpen play, which they've had in that span. And you've got the Tito factor, if you will, whatever he's going to do to manage that bullpen, the underdog factor, getting those longest odds, despite really handling contenders down the stretch, 4-2 against the Rays down the stretch, who they get first round, 5-2 against the Blue Jays this season. And they're getting plus 1,300 at DK to win the American League, plus 3,500 to win it all. But I think that the NL does seem stronger, that if they are able to navigate this bracket, I don't know if I like them to win the World Series. But if you're looking for a bet, I think you might as well go with one of these underdog shots, maybe the Blue Jays. But like I said, it's just a complete unknown as they go into this postseason for the first time. I'm just not that high on the Yankees. And I mean, maybe Mo will talk me into why they can get back to where they were in the first half and be that powerhouse on both sides of the ball.
Well, before I even talk about the Yankees, I just did want to say you didn't even mention Emmanuel Clase, which is maybe the reason I like the Guardians at those numbers as much as anybody else on their team closing out games. But give us a response there, Mo. What are you feeling about either of those Guardians? And Nate does want to know if you think those Yanks can turn it back around.
Not feeling the Guardians, but I'm sure that's going to come as no surprise from someone who had a lot invested in the Twins in the preseason. I still just don't think this is that good of a team, man. I was just looking over this roster. I don't see a real strong point aside from the bullpen. And yeah, I don't think it's a good lineup. I don't think the pitching is particularly impressive. The starting pitching, that is. Yeah, I honestly, that's why I'm looking kind of the same, but I was thinking the Rays, man, around 30-1. I think it's fine. Once again, when I plugged in series prices, it came out right around 31-1. So I think it's really, really close to just like fair there. If I had to pick one, I think I would maybe play the Rays around 30-1. I think there might have even been a 33. I'm with him on the Yankees. I think they're pretty vulnerable, man. I don't think this offense is near as good as it played the first half of the season. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle between their second half and their first half. But injuries in the bullpen, tons of injuries in the bullpen, man. It's just not the same bullpen they had on paper to start the season that was so dominant. I think Houston is significantly stronger than the Yanks. So basically what I'm saying is if Tampa Bay can get past their first two series, I mean, they're just, obviously it's baseball at that point. You know, you have a puncher's chance against anybody that comes out of the other half of the bracket. I do have to say, once again, that half of the bracket is much more loaded on the one side, the one seed side. So I'm a little bit interested in the Mariners as well. I think, again, I got around 30-1 when I was plugging in series prices here. I don't trust their offense. Their bullpen is obviously awesome, though, and they have very good starting pitching. But Houston is great, so I don't know. I'm just going to be unfortunately sweating my Toronto bet. I got plus, I think, 1,000 or 1,100 in the preseason. They're longer now, unfortunately, but just going to see what happens and hope for the best. I'm not that interested in any of the AL teams generally, just because I do think Houston is the most likely to come out of there, man. They have such a good team, but if I had to take some future, I think I would take Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because that's part of the reason I don't like the Yankees, is because if they do get Tampa Bay in the second round, I think the Rays match up extremely well against them. I mean, they're dead even over the last 2 seasons, but in the postseason, I definitely lean Rays because of the versatility of that bullpen, because of what we've seen from guys like a Rosarena getting hot at the right time, and now they have Tyler Glass now back. I think they're getting stronger at the right time from a pitching perspective, and then if they have that advantage over the Yankees, who really have one guy you really need to pitch around, I think they can use that strategy and take down the Bronx Bombers, and then we'll see what happens if they get the Astros.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually. I totally forgot to mention that. But yeah, that Tyler Glass now. I was looking at his first couple. Dude, he's throwing 97 again. His velocity is right in line with where it was. I know he's only going for 3, maybe 4 innings at a time right now, but dude, that could be a huge boost for them. I mean, add Glass now, legitimate ace level pitcher to that rotation, it gets a lot stronger. So I think maybe I don't know if he's going to even go 5 innings, honestly, but they do still have, even with their bullpen injuries, they do have a decent bullpen, I think. So Glass now could be a real weapon for them in this postseason.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of those. And I think we're all saying the same thing here, which is there are a handful of teams that were probably worth betting on. I should note that Justin Verlander might be in line for the Cy Young in the AL, as well as we're talking about the Stros. Something that on this podcast all season long, we continued to wait for the shoe to drop, and it never did. He just kept pitching like a stud. I don't know how that will fare for them in these playoffs. They do probably have the best starting lineup from top to bottom. It's just a matter of those guys not necessarily even having that much postseason experience. So I would say in the AL, it does seem like the Stros as the favorite from that league. They do seem like the safest bet overall. It's plus 380 is not terrible, but those Mariners are worth looking at. I mean, I do contend the Blue Jays, it's not as good as it looked at the beginning of the season, but they are still there, at least on schedule, right, with where they're supposed to be right now, and could make some noise here in these playoffs. But plenty more to come. These are just the opening odds, really, as the playoffs have just been set for this MLB season, so postseason. So we are going to continue to come back to you guys with some of these game lines and a few other things that we'll be talking about all MLB postseason. Want to make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us, as that is all the time we have for you today. So until we see you next, happy betting.